Hey guys, welcome back. I know it's been a while since I've done one of these videos myself. I've been trying to get you guys caught up with review and get everything. Hopefully, you have taken or are about to take your first mock exam, guys. Those mock exams are important for helping you get credit. They will really prepare you for the exam, and they, in and of themselves, act as a great review. So please take the mock exam. Today we're going to pick up with Narcissus Garden by Yayoi Kasuma, who is a Japanese artist. And she trained in traditional Japanese painting, which we'll talk about, as well as immersed herself in Western culture. Now, this was originally done in 1966, and like Andy Warhol, she dabbled in just about everything, moving from painting to sculpture to collage to installation to video and film, as well as happenings. So, pause the video. Let's go ahead and write down this ID tag, and let's get started then. So, let's pick up and let's look at Miss Kasuma, but look at her today. She is an odd duck. Yayoi Kasuma has been living in Japan for most of her life. She did live in the Americas for a while before returning to Japan, where she keeps herself in pretty much self isolation. She suffers from OCD as well as other general mental disorders. She leaves a self imposed psychiatric ward daily to go to her studio. And but she got her big fame, of course, in New York. Uh, she often posed within her works as a person, because very much her work is tied into her persona as a person and artist. In the early 1960s, she began to work with collage, eventually moving to sculpture, which is what we're seeing here. Now, of course, Narcissus Garden refers to the Greek myth of Narcissus, who got a glimpse of himself in a reflecting pool and fell in love with himself to the point where he drowned. So, what we're seeing here is the original installation from the 33rd Venice Biennial, which is a very prestigious art exhibit. Now, although Kasuma was not specifically invited to show, she was not officially invited to the biennial. She gained permission to create this installation from the directors. Now, what we see here is her with a series of large silver metallic balls. They are 200 millimeters in diameter, and she had a total of 1,500 of these balls that were highly polished and reflective. For her, it was meant to be a mirror to reality, and at the same time, creating a new sense of reality. Um, Now, like with her earlier work, she put herself in the installation, not just leaving the balls out, but actually standing amongst them in a gold traditional kimono with a silver sash. And she had two signs placed around the installation. One says Narcissus Garden Kasuma, and the other being Your Narcissism for Sale. And she actually did, in fact, sell these metallic balls, these 1,500 metallic balls, for what today would be roughly $2 a piece. And for her, this was meant to be a political statement. She was dealing with self promotion, yes, but at the same time, she was protesting the commercialism and the collectivism for monetary gain that was happening within the art world during this time. She eventually was asked to leave, quote unquote, for peddling her art, but the installation was allowed to remain up. Excuse me. Now, as you can see here, we see her interacting with the public, selling her metallic balls, but she also handed out pamphlets by the British critic Herbert Reed, who we see here, who praised her for her original talent. Now, Narcissus Garden and Kasuma's work probably would be it's installation art, but it was very much influenced by Cubism and pop art. Um, a lot of the reaction to this installation, especially with her standing in the middle of it, selling it, the critics claim that she was, quote, selling art like hot dogs or ice cream cones, which of course was her intent, that art should be for everyone. Excuse me. Here we see the infinity mirror from Fally's Field, the Kensling Gallery in New York, and we see her posing within her images. And we see, of course, those dots all over these stuffed objects. And the dots were kind of her thing. For her being a recluse and obsessive compulsive person, the dots for her were acted as a barrier between her and the rest of the world, between her and our reality. And they acted as a metaphor for a suit of armor that allowed her to kind of interact with the rest of the world. Now, her training as an artist came from what we call Nihonga painting, Japanese Nihonga painting, which was a mix of traditional Japanese painting with a blend of Western aesthetic and style. She eventually dumped that and began doing happenings, as we see here, installations, and yeah, just film. All of them pretty much based on political actions at the time, because the 1960s were raft with political reform. Of course, it took us into the 70s. And we can see here that she became part of her work. So for her as an artist, her work is part of her persona, part of her life, and she cannot remove herself from it. The dots, as I said before, became a surface, her canvas, and a surface between reality and herself. Now, when Kusama creates works of art, she terms them, and I'm going to highlight this with my mouse here, underlining it kind of as self obliteration. And for her, it was meant to kind of immerse herself to the point of being ever present and all encompassing, not just contained within herself. And then this, of course, for her was her way of staving off actual self obliteration, literal self obliteration, meaning her own death. And the fact that she continually creates these multitude of forms and dots and orbs were for her a metaphor, not only as a barrier, a surface between her and the world, but also a metaphor for overpopulation, contamination, and illness. The dots become cells or organisms that invade the body. The orbs become the people or general percentages of people that seem to overwhelm and invade an environment. And that's important because for her, the world was changing and not for the better. And these orbs became invasive species. Now, of course, her original idea was to create a political image about the sale of art. And as we see here in Central Park, New York, we see a permanent installation of Narcissus's garden. And of course, these are now considered to be prized possessions, becoming exactly the opposite of what she intended. So this is our first foray, outside of the earth art of Robert Smithson's Spiral Jetty installation. And we're going to pick up next time with the video on Christo and Jean-Claude's The Gates. So pick up here next time. Make sure you take notes, prepare for your exam, get ready for it, do well. I'll talk to you all later. Email me if you have any questions.